Hey guys, you guys wanted to see how I painted the Galaxy Bear, so I have this little plastic cup here that I'm going to be demonstrating on. I'm using almost all of Vallejo's colors. I'm using the black primer as to prime it. I'll name off all these when I go along, but all of the colors I pretty much use are from Vallejo, except for Tamiya's clear coat, which was what I used as a top coat on it, which worked pretty well for a top coat. So I'm just gonna start off by priming this part, well, imaginary part black with Vallejo's black primer. And what's great about Vallejo's paints is their acrylics and they practically dry. Like, I'm already able to touch this. And I love this paint. I don't have to thin it, I can just pour it straight into the cup. And that's what I've been using to paint all of my Gundams so far. I haven't really attempted enamels or anything like that yet. I will eventually, but for the meantime, I like being to just pour the paint straight into my airbrush and then just go, not worrying about have to thin anything or anything like that. So I have two different bottles I use. I have a thinner and then I have just plain water, because the cleaner, this stuff, it's not that expensive considering how big of a bottle it is, but I like to use as much as I can for it. Gets its whole money's worth out of it. I'm actually gonna turn this on. It might be a little loud, but it's only so these fumes go into the filter rather into my lungs, because that'd be no good. Alright. So that first color's done. Or I should say the primer's done. Now, the next step I'm going to be doing is the cool colors of the spectrum that I use. So I'm using Vallejo's Magic Blue to go down first, and then the Hexed Lichen to go down third, and then I went down with the Alien Purple for the third layer, and then for really bright spots I used Warlock Purple. So that's those are the four colors I'm going to be working with first. Now, since they're relatively the same kind of color, I decided when I was painting it that it'd just be way too much of a hassle to keep continuously cleaning out the airbrush for each individual color. So I'm like, hey, maybe I'll just, you know, go with it without cleaning out the airbrush, and we'll see how that goes. And it actually worked out pretty good because some of the left behind colors bled in with the color I wanted to use, and it actually made everything come together very nicely. It didn't look too it looked a little bit more natural with extra colors bleeding in, even though I just wanted the one specific color. So for all the cooler colors, I decided to just leave as is in the cup, so I didn't have to clean it out. So I'm just kind of going about this trying to be as random as possible, you know, adding some highlighted parts and some really faded out parts, but still leaving behind the black, because that's really important. Oh, and I'm also I should have probably turned it down. I'm working at 20 psi right now. Okay, so that looks about good for the blue. Now I'm gonna go back over this. I'm gonna empty all this out, and I'm not gonna clean out the airbrush. Just gonna try and get out as much of the blue as possible. And then I'm gonna add in the hexed lichen next. Run it through just to get mainly that color. And then I'm gonna go back over this. And some areas that I think that are a little too bright, I really want to darken this down with that deep purple. What's really nice at having that bright blue on the bottom is it really makes this purple pop if you just leave some of that behind. So it gives it a really nice cool look. Because if it wasn't on the blue, it would practically just look like the black we laid down as the primer. It's important to get some widespread paint to cover a big area, and then to go in and do some fine lines, but really just try and keep it as random as you can. Now with these lighter colors, like the alien purple I'm going to be using next, the lighter colors, I'm really going to be using that, using them as lines mainly. Maybe a few widespread shots, but really I just want to get like really fine wispy lines all throughout the some being lighter than others. And what's actually really cool about when I found out about painting this galaxy is when I thought I made a mistake, it actually turned out really cool in the end. So don't think whatever you're doing is like ever a mistake. Just kind of flow with what you got and make the best out of it. Don't ever think what you did was a mistake. Like, that could be seen as a mistake, but I'll work with it. Alright, that looks pretty good for the alien purple. You don't need a lot. I probably did a little bit too much, but what's awesome about this is I can go over with either the blue, the magic blue, or the hexen lichen for to darken the piece back up. And then I'm using the warlock purple next. Now I'm really going to be selective with this stuff because this stuff is really bright. But it gives it such a cool look. But again, I'm going to just go in and do some really fine lines. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now, I'm actually going to clean out my airbrush because I'm going to move on to white. And the reason why we're going to we're working backwards in is I found, instead of trying to work with the lighter colors first, it ended up causing more problems because I would want to, you know, have this really nice faded out look from the reds and the yellows and oranges into that deep, vibrant bluish purple background. But when I did it, starting out with the whites, it ended up losing a lot of that color. All the yellow started to disappear. So I was like, okay, well, let's start with the background first. So that worked out pretty nice. And so I'm using dead white from Vallejo. Sorry. I'm using dead white from Vallejo's. This is all the Game Air line, so they have a lot more vibrant colors from the Game Air. Otherwise, their original just model air is mainly geared towards like militaristic, you know, army colors. So a lot of browns, grays. Alright, so, oops. What I'm going to be doing with the yellow, which I'll put a little more in. Oops. What's really nice about airbrushes too is you don't have to use a lot of paint whatsoever. It takes like a couple drops and you're all set. Alright, so let's just go with doing a galaxy, kind of like a galaxy-ish pattern. So start out with a circle-ish. And it's okay to have that nice spread on it, mainly because these excess white dots are going to help blend into the background later on. So we'll make that a galaxy right there, and we'll make this little spot a comet. Alright. And we'll come back doing stars later on when we've gotten the rest of our paints down. So same thing goes with all the warm colors. I'm not gonna take out the white. Same reason why I did the cooler colors. So I'm going to be starting out with Sun Yellow, then I'll be using Orange Hot, and then I'm going to be using Gory Red to finish it off. Alright. Alright. Now we're going to want to paint this whole thing yellow to start off. Have a little bit of the yellow fade into the background, but not too much, because yellow mixing with purples and blues tend to make brown, which that won't look good. This is just kind of stuff I picked up back when I was taking art classes, so have a little bit fade into the background because it'll help darken those parts, and we're gonna use those darkened parts to help fade in with the reds. We're gonna use a little bit of yellow in this. Okay, that looks good for the yellow. Now we're going to move on to Hot Orange. And again, not cleaning out the airbrush, only because having that extra bleed of like all the colors previously really adds to the flow of making it look more natural than anything. So I want to keep that really nice bright yellow in the middle and just kind of highlight it with the orange. And it's better to use less paint and have to keep refill it, especially with these nice bottles. Like it's not that big of a deal to go back and just grab the paint you're using and refill the brush or the airbrush. And I'm gonna leave that because I'm gonna actually fill this in with some blue, so maybe that yellow in there will give it like a green hue, which will look really cool. I haven't done anything, I didn't try that on the other one, but we'll see what happens with it. It's all about just trying and experimenting and kind of just going with what comes out. Alright, next we're doing the Gory Red. Alright, and then this, we're really going to want to just focus on that outer layer. looks pretty good. We'll bring in some red randomly in here, because if you try and use the yellow orange or the sun yellow or the hot orange on any of these darker parts out here, it won't really show and it'll just look up like really dark, dirty spots. But the red actually comes through very nicely on these outer layers. And I'm just using this to highlight some parts and add some more random wisps. Oops, don't want to roll in the paint. All right. So that looks pretty good. All right. Now, since we've dealt with all the colors, on this next part, I'm actually going to clean out the airbrush again, even though I'm going to be using white. I don't want, since I'm trying to make stars or little speckles of stars all throughout the cup, I really want to just have that white. I don't want any other extra bleeding colors from the previous colors we used. Alright, now we're going to try and make some stars. It's actually one of the easiest parts of this. And just going to add some white back into the airbrush. Alright, so I don't know, it might be hard to see the tip of this, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back a little bit on the airbrush before I actually spray. So what it's gonna happen is it's gonna get paint on the needle before it actually I put any air through it, and that's gonna create that speckly effect. Now normally you would not want this on normally you would not want something like that on a model, only because it looks very messy and it just looks like a lot of mistakes and you take your time with it. But with this, it creates a really nice random star pattern that you really have no control over. It's just gonna come out however it wants to come out, which is really great. Alright. Whoops. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Come on, focus. My camera's not wanting to cooperate today. It's wanting to focus on my hand more than anything. And the background. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright. Now, I'm gonna make those really bright stars. And I'm gonna need a credit card or anything kind of flat and plasticky to do these kind of stars. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a little tiny bright spot, right? And then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna hold it up close to the cup, and I'm just gonna spray a little bit like that. I'm gonna turn it, spray the other way. And I'm gonna get this really nice cross pattern. Just like that. Might be a little off. Put it more towards the center. There we go. See? Nice and bright. Now you can go back and put yellow on top of this, or the blue, or even a little bit of red. Any colors will really work on top of these, just to make different colored stars. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over this with some blue, just to give it a nice blue trail, leading up to that nice white, yellow comet. And then I think we'll pretty much be ready for a top coat. So I'll go ahead and clean this airbrush out again. Only disadvantage of not having more than one airbrush. I constantly have to keep cleaning it out. But you know, when I get a little bit more money, and it's definitely helpful to have more than one airbrush. Definitely, I recommend it. Whether getting 2 really cheap ones and just working with both of them till they either something breaks on them or it just stops working. Normally, if it just stops working, it's probably clogged, and you can take the airbrush apart and fix it that way. But I know when I first had a clog on my airbrush, boy oh boy was I intimidated by all the parts that go into it, and I was really afraid to lose something and forgetting how to put it back together. But I looked up some YouTube videos on different airbrushes and pretty much got it through that way, learning how to take it apart and fixing the clog that was causing the backup, or for it to stop spraying paint. Alright, I'm gonna take magic blue to fill in this comet. So I didn't realize that the video stopped recording. I'll slap them together though. This is what ended up happening to the comet. It turned out alright, you know. I probably should have just left it that yellow, but I wanted to see if I can make it go over it light enough where it would make that green, but that's alright. Mistakes happen, I'll just go with it, considering this is just for a demo. I would probably go back over it with white and probably just leave it white and add a little bit more blue to blend it in a little bit, but that's all for that. So this is pretty much done. I added in the speckles. Those stars came out very nicely. And all there's left is for top coat. Now I'm using the Tamiya Clear. I thought it worked out pretty nicely when I was using it. I know there's a lot of different other kind of clear coats that will, you know, protect the part better. I haven't used any of those yet. I plan on to, so until I find a better top coat, this is what I'm using for this one. So I'm just gonna spray this on here, get a nice even, or attempt to get an even coat. So with the top coat, I decided not to thin it down. As you can tell, it's having a little bit of a hard time running it through the airbrush, because the Tamiya paints are a little bit thicker, but that's alright. I didn't find too much, you know, clogging problems. It'll just have a little bit of a harder time getting through the airbrush. Now, what I do to compensate for that is I just turn up the PSI a little bit, so I'm operating about at, you know, 25 right now. So I just spray this on really heavily. But that's pretty much all you do to get this galaxy look. And stars and all that fun stuff. So I'm not gonna cover the whole thing in top coat because it'll take a lot of paint to make this look really shiny. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I hope that it was very informative and it helped you kind of understand how I actually went about doing the Galaxy Bear. If you have any more questions or comments that you'd like to share about the video, please leave them in the comments, and I might come out with some more. Who knows? It was fun making this video, and I know that some of the techniques I probably do are a little bit bizarre, considering I'm brand new at this, but it was nice doing this for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helped you understand what I did to make the Galaxy Bear. And I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!